Most financial advice is built around big decisions: when to buy a home, whether to change jobs, how to handle an inheritance, the large, high-stakes moves that feel like they define your financial future. But if you look at what consistently builds wealth for ordinary people, not extreme earners, not people who caught a break at the right moment, you find a different pattern. It's smaller, less dramatic, and far more repeatable. Investing $100 every single month over a long enough period of time sets 4 distinct forces in motion simultaneously. Most people, when they picture what monthly investing does, are only tracking one of them, the balance growing in their account. The other 3 are where most of the real work happens. This video goes through all 4. What each one is, how it works, and what they produce together when they're all running at the same time for years and then decades. The first force has nothing to do with the number in your account. It's about the behavior behind the number. When you invest $100 a month, the financial return in the early months is real but modest. What's less visible, and what tends to matter more in the long run, is that you're simultaneously building a specific financial reflex, one that most people never develop, not because they lack the money, but because they never create the conditions for it to form. Here's how the mechanics actually work. You open an investment account. You select a broad index fund, something that tracks the overall market rather than placing a bet on any individual company. You set up an automatic monthly transfer of $100. On a fixed date each month, that transfer executes. You don't decide each time. You decided once. The transfer runs whether you're paying close attention or not. That structural detail is more important than it sounds. Automation removes willpower from the equation. It removes the monthly internal negotiation of should I do this or not this month? That negotiation, repeated over months and years, is where most small investing habits break down. Not dramatically, not in one visible failure, but gradually, through the accumulation of pauses. Willpower is a finite resource. Automation is not. At the 6-month mark, your balance will be somewhere around $600, give or take depending on what the market did. That's not a number that produces a strong emotional response. The account won't feel meaningful yet. What is meaningful, even if it's not visible on a dashboard, is that you've built financial infrastructure. The decision is made once and executes automatically. Most people never build that. They keep the decision in their heads, which means every month is a new opportunity to delay. At 12 months, you've contributed $1,200. Your account might read $1,300, maybe slightly more depending on market performance. The balance still isn't impressive. But here's what you actually built over those 12 months, separate from any financial return. You completed 12 consecutive cycles of a financial commitment. Across those 12 months, there was almost certainly at least one where money felt tight, at least one where the $100 felt difficult to spare, at least one where skipping seemed completely reasonable. The habit survived all of those. That survival is what 12 months actually builds. There's also a practical dynamic worth understanding here. Unallocated money, money without a designated destination, doesn't typically get saved. It disperses into the low-friction spending environment around it, not out of irresponsibility, but out of absence of structure. The automatic transfer gives the $100 a destination before that friction can redirect it every month, without requiring you to be in a particularly disciplined or motivated state. That's what the habit engine produces. Not a dramatic balance, not a life-changing account statement, a repeating automatic process that keeps running regardless of how you feel about it on any given Tuesday. The second force is the one most investors find uncomfortable, but understood correctly, it's also the one that creates a structural advantage for people who invest consistently over time. Markets fluctuate. If you invest long enough, you will experience multiple corrections, periods where your account drops 10, 15, or 20% over the course of weeks or months. This is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It's the normal, expected behavior of markets over long time horizons. Corrections have occurred regularly throughout market history and historically have been followed by recoveries. The question isn't whether you'll experience a correction. You will. The question is what you do when it happens. Here's what a correction looks like from inside a $100 per month investing habit. You're somewhere around year 2 or year 3. Your account is sitting at roughly $3,000. The market drops 12 to 15% across a few months. Your balance falls to around $2,600. The number moves backward. It's uncomfortable to look at. At this point, you have two practical choices. Option 1, you pause the automatic transfer, wait for the market to stabilize, and restart contributions when things feel more certain. Option 2, you keep the transfer running on its normal schedule. The second option has a mechanical advantage that's worth understanding clearly. When the market is down, your $100 purchases more shares than it did when prices were higher. You're not timing anything. You're doing the opposite of timing. You're buying on a fixed schedule regardless of market conditions. What that produces over time is a lower average cost per share than someone who only bought during high price periods. This is called dollar cost averaging. It doesn't require any special knowledge or active decisions. It's a natural result of investing consistently on a schedule. And it means that a correction, if you kept contributing through it, quietly worked in your favor on the back end. When the market recovers, as it has historically over sufficiently long time frames, those lower cost shares are now worth more than you paid for them. The investor who paused during the correction and re-entered later typically buys back in after prices have partially or fully recovered. They had a window of lower prices and stepped away from it. The investor who kept the automatic transfer running didn't do anything sophisticated. They didn't analyze the market or make a strategic call. They just didn't stop. By year 3 or 4, if you've been through a correction and a recovery, your account at historical average returns might be sitting around $4,500 to $5,000 against contributions of $3,600 to $4,800. The discipline of the down period contributed to that outcome, not visibly at the time. On the other side of it, the market engine doesn't reward prediction. It doesn't require you to know when to buy or when to hold. It rewards one specific behavior, keeping the process running when your instinct suggests you should pause. The third force is the one most people learn about first, but it actually makes more practical sense after the first two, because it only delivers its full effect when the habit is intact and the market behavior is managed. Compounding without consistency is just arithmetic. Compounding with consistency is something different. Here's how it works. Your balance earns a percentage return each year. That return gets added to your balance. The following year, you earn a percentage return on the larger balance. That return is added again. The balance grows each year, which means each year's return is calculated on a larger number than the one before it. The growth accelerates over time. In the early years, the acceleration is present but modest. At year 5, with $6,000 contributed at a simplified historical annual average return of around 10%, not a guaranteed figure, but one referenced from long-term S&P 500 historical data. Your account sits at approximately $7,700 to $8,200. You have roughly $1,700 to $2,200 more than you deposited. In that 5th year alone, your portfolio generated approximately $700 to $800 in returns. That's about $60 to $65 per month, generated by the balance itself. Your deposit is still $100 per month. The compounding is contributing roughly $60 to $65. You're doing most of the work at this stage. That's normal. At year 10, contributions total $12,000. Balance at the historical average, approximately $20,000 to $21,000. Annual returns in that 10th year, roughly $1,800 to $2,000. About $150 to $160 per month from the accumulated balance, while your monthly deposit is still $100. This is the crossover point approaching. Your $100 monthly contribution is about to be outpaced by what the balance generates on its own. At year 20, you've put in $24,000. Balance? Approximately $75,000 to $76,000. Annual return in an average year, around $7,000, nearly $580 per month from compounding. Your annual contributions are $1,200. The balance is producing roughly 6 times that amount on its own. At year 30, contributions total $36,000. Balance? Approximately $220,000 to $228,000. Annual return at the historical average, approximately $22,000. You contribute $1,200 per year. The account generates $22,000. At year 40, you've made 480 monthly deposits of $100, $48,000 total. Balance at the historical average, approximately $630,000 to $640,000. Annual return in an average year, roughly $63,000. Track the progression of annual returns across those years. Roughly $700 at year 5, $2,000 at year 10, $7,000 at year 20, $22,000 at year 30, $63,000 at year 40. Same $100 monthly deposit throughout. The math changes because compounding operates on the accumulated balance, and the accumulated balance has been growing for decades. The compounding engine runs entirely on duration. Not talent, not timing, not selecting the best performing fund in a given year. Duration is the input. Acceleration is the output. The longer the engine runs, the more of the work it does, and the less your individual monthly contribution matters relative to what the balance itself is generating. This also means the most expensive thing you can sacrifice isn't the $100, it's the years. Delaying a start by 5 or 10 years doesn't just shift the timeline. It removes years from the period when compounding accelerates most, which is the back half of the investment horizon. Early years feel like hard work with modest output. Late years feel like modest effort with significant output. Both impressions are accurate. That's the design. The fourth force isn't in any financial projection. It won't appear in a compound interest calculator. But over a decade or more of consistent investing, it becomes one of the most practically meaningful outcomes of the whole process. It's the change that happens to you, not abstractly, concretely. At year 5, your relationship with financial uncertainty is genuinely different from what it was at year 1. Not because you read something, because you experienced something. You went through a correction and stayed in. You had tight months and kept the transfer running. You watched a balance decline and then recover. Your tolerance for financial discomfort was built up through direct exposure, not through theory or intention. That changes how you make financial decisions going forward. Not perfectly, not all at once, but in measurable ways. When you've watched $100 a month grow at a specific rate over a specific number of years, in your actual account, with your actual money, you evaluate spending differently. The calculation running in the background when you make financial decisions becomes more nuanced than, can I afford this? At year 10, you have firsthand familiarity with investing that most people your age have only in abstract. You know what a correction feels like from inside it, not from a description. You know how a recovery looks in your actual statements. You have a personal track record with money under pressure, and the track record shows consistency. That's a different kind of financial confidence than knowing the right terminology. There's a second effect that's worth naming directly. The longer you invest consistently, the larger the gap between your options and the options available to someone who hasn't started yet, not as a point of comparison, as a practical reality. The person at 40 with a decade of consistent investing behind them has concrete financial flexibility that isn't available to someone starting from zero at the same age. The accumulation of small decisions produces real specific options over time: a clearer path to retirement, more room to take a calculated risk, the ability to stop working before the traditional retirement age if that's what they choose. The identity engine doesn't produce a dashboard number. What it produces is a version of you who has more options and a more accurate, experienced relationship with how money actually works. Both compound alongside the financial engines, all four running at the same time, for as long as the habit holds. Four engines, all activated by the same single action. The habit engine keeps the contribution running automatically, regardless of motivation in any given month. The market engine rewards consistent behavior precisely when it's hardest to maintain: during corrections, during recoveries, during the long, neutral stretches in between. The compounding engine takes over progressively, more of the growth work the longer the balance accumulates. And the identity engine produces a different investor over time, one with direct experience, genuine financial tolerance, and a widening set of options. None of these engines require high income to activate. None of them require you to time the market or select individual stocks or have an unusually strong financial background. The input required to start all four is straightforward: an index fund account, an automatic transfer, and the consistency to leave the structure in place. The balance at year 40, somewhere around $630,000 at a historically referenced average return, is not the goal you're optimizing for. It's the output of four forces you set in motion, running compounded over decades. What you're actually doing when you invest $100 a month isn't building a savings balance. You're building a system that runs automatically, that works better during uncomfortable periods than during comfortable ones, that accelerates rather than plateaus, and that produces a different financial person as a byproduct. The start of all four engines is the same: $100 automatic every month.